Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. In this video I want to address depth of field. So this is a lesson in depth of field. Welcome to the video. I'm just going to briefly discuss depth of field, and we've got a plain example here to help you, guide you how depth of field works. So essentially I've set up these 4 Star Trek models. You might be familiar with them, but basically we've got a Nebula class starship here. We've got a Voyager class, Intrepid class ship here. We've got a Vulture class cruiser and a Bird of Prey Klingon ships. So obviously you might notice I'm a bit of a fan of in Star Trek, but I thought I'd give you an example, visual example of depth of field. So we're about a meter away from the first starship, and we're focused on this one here, about here. Now I want to describe depth of field, how it works. Briefly put, depth of field, it refers to what's in the foreground, which is in front of you, and what's in the background, and how much of that is in focus and out of focus. So generally speaking, if I'm focused on this ship here, the first disruptor bit of the cannon here should be out of focus, and hopefully this ship and that ship, because we want to isolate this ship and focus on that ship. But depth of field, if we play around with the apertures, we can bring these other ships into focus, or at least more into focus. So this video is all about showing you depth of field, how it applies. So I've got an overview picture here for you to see where the ships are positioned. So let's go to the first image. So the first image is that Nebula starship here, and we're focused on the deflector array there. And as you can see, this is aperture F2.8. This is a full frame EOS R camera that we're using, and the ISO is at 1000. So it's quite relatively low ISO, but because it's a full frame camera, it can cope with very high ISOs. So I just want to show you the differences between the apertures, what it brings into focus. So as I've said, this disruptor cannon here on this Klingon ship is actually in front of this deflector array here. If we go back to our overview picture here, as you can see, it's quite a significant distance in front. So we go back to our first image here. So this is aperture 2.8. This is typically what most people want to isolate your subject matter, and it gives you an idea of what it does and what it's out of focus. Basically, the focus plane is pretty much there and there. Obviously that's in front of the focus plane. So let's just have a look at F4, see how that compares. Obviously there's a little bit of difference, but this is the thing. Everyone thinks 2.8 is fantastic and great and much better than F4. It's only a tiny bit better, you know. Let's just go back to that first image. 2.8, F4, very minor difference. So let's have a look at F5.6, see if that brings that disruptor cannon into focus at all. So let's just have a look. It brings it a tiny bit into focus, but not much. As you can see, the nacelles have sort of got a lot more into focus here, and we're seeing more of the ship as well, because this part is in front of the deflector array. But that's F5.6. Let's just have a look at F8. And obviously it brings a lot more into focus, but obviously we're still not getting that disruptor cannon into focus, but the majority of that ship is in focus, and we've brought some of this Vulture class cruiser into focus. Obviously that Intrepid Voyager class starship is still out of focus anyway. So we need to make the iris even smaller to try and get more in focus. Believe it or not though, you can't actually tell what's in and out of focus in terms of depth of field through the viewfinder on a mirrorless camera. So it's not as fantastic as everyone makes out. The only thing it is beneficial is you can actually see exposure in real time. So obviously let's have a look at F16, see what that does. So F16, we pretty much brought the disruptor cannon into focus. Literally all of the Nebula class starship is in focus, and the majority of the Klingon Vulture cruiser in focus, and we've got more of the Intrepid Voyager ship into focus. but that gives you an idea of what's happening regarding depth of field. So we can go even further. We could eventually go up to f/32, but the thing is, the more you close the iris down, the more risk you've got of bringing something called diffraction into your picture. Basically, that's the softening of the image. So it's always advisable not to go down too much, but just for the sake of it, let's have a look at f/22 and see what that does. There's a minor amount of difference with the Disruptor Canon here. More of the Voyager class cruiser is in focus, and it's brought more of the actual Intrepid ship into focus. So let's go back all the way to f/28, f2.8, and let's just have a look how that looks. So just quickly, 2.8, f4, 5.6, f8, f16, finally f/22. Very minor differences at each step. I think the main amount of focus you're gaining, that's a dramatic difference, would be between f8 and f16. I think that's your main differences really. It's a big step from f8 to f16. So I just wanted to give you a quick visual aid referring to depth of field, how it works. Obviously that's f/22, and then that's our top picture to tell you where the ships are in relation to the focus. So I hope this video was a bit helpful. I'll show you the examples now in a music based video, but I hope this video helped you out in figuring out depth of field. Ultimately, just remember that depth of field refers to what's in front of your main subject matter and what's behind it, the amount of focus that you're getting. So, you know, this is really applicable for landscapes really, because you want as much of the landscape in focus as possible. So typically most people stick to f8 and f16 for landscapes, but I just want to give you a visual demonstration on depth of field, how it applies, and hopefully this video was informative, and thanks for watching.